Hey YouTube, so I uploaded a video recently in which I made the offhand comment that I can mentally visualize a surface that is both red and green all over simultaneously. So like a double colored surface. In fact, I can do that with any two colors, not just red and green. Three colors I'm not so sure about, but with two colors I'm pretty confident that I can get the mental image of a surface that's both red and green. Um, and a lot of commenters found this surprising. I think some didn't even believe me, which is fair enough. It's fair to be skeptical of these claims. But I just wanted to talk in this video about some tricks that you might be able to use to learn how to do this. So one thing to keep in mind about this is that mental imagery is, I think, a skill. You can be, you can practice it. You can get better at it. So I'm actually a very poor imager. In fact, I used to wonder if I had aphantasia. I don't think that I do anymore. I'm pretty confident these days that I can get mental images, but I'm really not that good at it. I can get simple colors and shapes, but if you ask me to imagine a detailed object or like a landscape or something like that, I'm really not sure that I can get a vivid image of that. I mean, so like if I say, okay, imagine a house, say a house against, fields and trees. I mean, I can sort of get the shape of the land and maybe the overall shape of the house, but in any detail, it's very difficult for me. So yeah, I'm a very poor imager, but I don't know. I don't really have much trouble just sort of taking a surface that's one color and putting another color on it. But I recognize. Look, it's something that a lot of people. Look, we don't have any actual perceptual experience of objects that are double colored, and I think that it's pretty rare that people actually sit down and practice this and try to do it. And so this is important, right? Is that you can practice your mental imagery and get better at it. I've no doubt that I've gotten better at mental imagery over time, but this does mean sitting down and actually doing this or laying down. A good time to practice mental imagery, I think, is when you're laying down in bed trying to go to sleep. I find that to be a nice time to do that. There's another point, though, that I will grant right off the bat, which is I think it's totally fair to be very skeptical of the claims that people make about their mental imagery. So, yeah, I mean, it's perfectly reasonable to just reject what I'm saying about my own experience here. Of course, that does cut both ways, right? So, okay, am I really mentally visualizing a double-colored object? Well, maybe not. Maybe I'm just mistaken. I could be deceiving myself into thinking that I'm doing that. Maybe what's actually going on in my mind is something different. But then, like, with the claims that you might be making about your mental imagery, right? Again, is it really so obvious that you're not visualizing that? I think that our judgments, again, as I sort of mentioned, judgments about mental imagery, I think are guided often by what we actually visually perceive, or at least what we take the external world to be like. So if I ask you to visualize, say, a tiger, right? Like sit down, close your eyes, visualize a tiger, then you know that tigers have stripes, right? And so you're saying, like, I'm mentally visualizing these stripes. But are you actually mentally, like, are you actually getting the picture of those stripes, like the image of those stripes in your mind? Could you count those stripes? I mean, how many stripes does the tiger have? For me, when I imagine a tiger, I'm not sure whether I'm really like mentally seeing the stripes, or whether I just kind of get this like indeterminate stripiness property, which is a little bit weird. But anyway, again, I grant completely that yes, it's fine to be skeptical of the claims made about mental imagery, but I do think that cuts both ways, and that if you are a skeptic of mental imagery, then maybe you should be open-minded to the idea that these double-coloured mental images might actually be possible. So what's going on with, let's take red and green, right? So I can get a surface that's both red and green all over simultaneously. So essentially, what I'm doing is I start by visualizing a red surface, and then I just paste green over it. without removing any of the red. Okay, well, putting it like that maybe isn't so much help. But again, I said maybe there's a couple of tricks that you might be able to use. So here's one thing you could do. You could start by just looking at a red object. Take something red, look at it. Okay, so now you have a red surface in your visual field. Now, while you're still looking at the red object, mentally visualize something green and kind of put it in the same place. So I take it that you can, I mean, obviously you can mentally visualize while you're still receiving actual visual imagery. And that's how most of our mental imagery works. But one of the sort of things that you can do with mental imagery is you can kind of hold mental imagery in this sort of ghostly internal space, or you can kind of push it into the visual field. So a good way to learn how to do this, if you're not good at placing the mental imagery in the visual field, is start out with like a line drawing on like black lines on white paper, just a simple line drawing with no colors. And then while you're looking at that paper, try to mentally fill in the colors. I think I think people can do this, right? Or maybe you could even start with like what are those things called where you know when you have like dots and you have to join the dots? Is it just called join the dots? Those join the dots things, those little pictures you had when you were a kid where you like drew the line around the dots. So you could start out with some dots, right? And then looking at the dots, like mentally place the black lines over them. I think people can do this, right? So do that, right? But take a line drawing, say, and mentally fill in the colors. Now, notice that what you're doing, if you're doing this, is you will be visually seeing white while mentally visualizing some color, right? So like with some section of the paper between the black lines, you're going to be filling it in. So, you have the visual impression of whiteness and then the kind of mental image of blueness, and you're kind of putting that blueness on the whiteness, but you're still seeing the whiteness, of course. I mean, like when you do this, it's not as though the paper changes color. You can see the white and you're placing the blue over it. And if you attend to that, to like think about what that's like, attend to that clash, you might start to get a sense of what it would be like for something to be white and blue all over simultaneously. Now, of course, right, I know that this isn't the perfect example, right? I mean, well, this example isn't an example of what we're talking about because there is a distinction between seeing and mentally visualizing. That's fine, right? So in the scenario that I'm describing, what's going on here is you're not seeing white and blue all over. Similarly, you're not mentally visualizing white and blue all over. You're seeing white and visualizing blue, and you're sort of seeing this and visualizing it and kind of putting the visualization in the same place. So yes, this isn't like a visual image of something that's white and blue all over, but I'm just saying if you attend closely to that experience, you might get a sense of what this is supposed to be like, and that might help you genuinely visualize double colored surfaces. I suppose the thing is can you sort of, once you start sort of see, right, you can see the white and you're visualizing the blue, can you then kind of shift, like try to shift in your experience like take the whiteness and sort of kind of put that with the, like put that into the mental imagery space, as it were. So anyway, this is just a suggestion for how you might be able to get there. But you have to practice it, right? I mean, sit down and actually try to do this. But I mean, I think part of the problem with this double-colored stuff is that, when you say, okay, can you visualize something that's both, red and green all over or white and blue all over, people kind of go like, oh, well, I'm not doing it, so no, I can't do it. No, you have to actually sit down and practice. Because, of course, this isn't something, it's not like you're going to have there's very few contexts in which this is something that you're ever going to be asked to do in your life. So we again, mental imagery I think is a skill, and this is just an aspect of that that's left untouched. So it's not surprising that it might be a little bit baffling at first. So another thing though that's very useful for this is to notice how the visual field and mental imagery have a somewhat vague boundary at times, right? So the actual experience of, like I said, okay, these are two very distinct things, right? The visual field on the one hand and mental imagery on the other, they're sort of in these separate spaces. But actually, I think that there is overlap between them. And a good way to get a sense of this overlap is when you're in bed at night, laying down, doing nothing else, and you get the eigengrau, right? Close your eyes, you just get that field of eigengrau. So I have found, and I think this is probably true for a lot of people, that when I really put a lot of effort into visualizing stuff, when I'm like laying in bed and I just can't see anything else, I just get that eigengrau, I can get this very odd sense that I lose the boundary between sort of visually seeing the eigengrau and then what I'm mentally imagining. So I can do this with sort of letters, right? Like I might imagine, I mentally visualize the letter A, but then what will happen is that I'll get the sense that the letter A isn't just something I'm mentally visualizing. It's something, it's almost like there's an A shape that emerges in the eigengrau, or like I might get like a blue circle. If I lay in bed and I really kind of focus on a blue circle and I have the mental image of a blue circle, it can kind of be impressed upon the eigengrau field, and then it's like, wait, is this a mental image, or is this a kind of visual sensory image? Which is it? And I really don't know. There are some psychological studies which I think it's that they asked people to sort of look at a white surface, so like on a computer screen, a white surface, and then imagine a pink circle on the surface. But what they would do with some of the participants is they would actually like produce a very, very, very subtle pink circle on the screen itself, so that the people were actually perceiving a pink circle, but they thought that they were just imagining the pink circle. Like they didn't realize that there was actually a pink circle in their visual field. They thought that it was something like that. It was, so I might be wrong about the nature of that study, but there is some study which kind of shows that there is this sort of overlap between, or there seems to be this overlap in certain cases between the visual field and mental imagery. Now, of course, the important point about this is if you can get to a place where you have, say, a red object in front of your eyes, and then you're mentally visualizing a green surface and kind of pushing that into the visual field. Yeah, you're sort of placing it mentally on the red. Okay, so you're seeing the red and you're visualizing green. Right, if you can then kind of combine that with these experiences of the visual field overlapping with eigengrau, maybe you can start to get the sense of what it would really look like for something to be both red and green all over simultaneously. I suppose another thing just to sort of keep in mind as you're doing this is that whenever you visualize anything, you're going to be. If I say to you, okay, visualize red and green all over. Images will come to your mind and you're going to say, well, it's not that. No, that's not it. And then with these little tasks I've set you, as you do them, you might be saying to yourself, like, no, that's not it. That's not really red and green all over. That's not what that would be. But then, I mean, what is driving that judgment? I mean, you must have some sense, if only conceptual, of what double colours would look like. I mean, that's like kind of what you're using. You're using that sense to compare with what you're actually experiencing, and then that's what's driving this judgment that no, these things I'm experiencing are not examples of double-coloured objects or double-coloured surfaces. So it's maybe worth reflecting on that. I mean, is that really merely conceptual? Like what you're kind of comparing your current experiences too? Is that just a kind of conceptual thing, or might there be something I don't know, more sensory about that? So maybe also reflect on that part of it. Keep that in mind as you're doing this, and maybe you'll be able to. Maybe it'll click. Well, I can't promise anything, but those are just some little tricks that you might be able to do to apply to get this. But as I said, I would say it might take some practice. You might like actually put a little bit of work into this. I mean, it's not real work, is it? Just lay down in a dark room for 20 minutes and really try. Like, give it a shot, give it a try, because mental imagery is really cool. I mean, it's a very cool part of experience, and so it's it's worth exploring. Okay, I'm going to leave it there, and thanks for watching. Bye, everybody.